Before we begin, the script for this video is 10,000 words and 20 pages long. As I do with all of my major reviews, I've worked with a very talented graphic artist to make a limited edition version of this script available exclusively to patrons. If you'd like to get hold of that script or just support the work that I do, check the link to Patreon in the description below. Thanks and enjoy the review. This video contains spoilers for the entire story of Forsaken, the last raid boss in The Last Wish, and also the movie Kill Bill.
What's the matter, Wilbur?
They changed my Coke.
Something wrong with it?
I know, but they sure changed it.
Coulda asked.
What coulda? I stuck with them through 3 wars and a couple of dust storms, but this is too much. Guess something big made them change.
Right, big.
We all know and probably remember the console wars. Hell, they exist even today.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
But every industry has its own brand wars. Microsoft versus Apple, Marvel versus DC, McDonald's versus Burger King. But one of the most bitter rivalries in the history of commerce is one fought over 2 products that most people struggle to even tell the difference between. I'm talking, of course, about Coca-Cola and Pepsi. You probably don't know it, but Coca-Cola is a 132-year-old company. Coke was originally sold as a medicinal drink before it was eventually marketed to consumers. And throughout the first half of the 20th century, Coke dominated its competition, achieving about 60% market share towards the end of the Second World War. Pepsi is almost as old as Coke, funnily enough, but they weren't able to gain traction with consumers until after the Second World War, when they began tapping into different audiences, younger audiences, and positioned Pepsi as a more hip alternative.
I'm up to my knees in 0 calories. Pepsi to the max, so let's drink all of these.
Movie stars, pop stars, product placements. Pepsi knew how to market itself better than Coke did, and it was gaining ground on Coke every day. But the true turning point for Pepsi was this.
This is the taste. This is the test. Pepsi versus Coke, the Pepsi Challenge. Pepsi. And all across America, more people pick Pepsi. Time after time after time.
Pepsi Cola.
Oh, what a time. It's gonna be Pepsi.
The Pepsi Challenge was a simple concept. Put 2 drinks in front of someone without telling them what they were, get them to taste them, and then say which one they liked better. Pepsi began running these tests and found that Pepsi won more often than Coke did, so they just started filming these reactions and putting them into commercials. This was the Pepsi Challenge. It was leveraging the power of market research and focus group testing to terrific effect. Coke's market share tumbled from an all-time high of 60% in 1946 to an all-time low of 24% in 1983. Coke needed to act. Around this time, a new CEO at Coke took the reins, and as he came on board, he made clear that there were no sacred cows, meaning that absolutely anything could change as the company looked to rebuild itself, and that included its formula, which had remained almost entirely unchanged for 100 years. So, what did they do? They cooked up a new recipe and they put it out in front of people in the same style focus groups that Pepsi was using and asked them which people liked better. And almost every time, people would say that they liked the taste of this new Coke recipe more than they liked the flavor of Pepsi. If the Pepsi Challenge was the spear that shattered Coke's mighty shield, then clearly Coke had now turned this spear against Pepsi. They'd come up with a flavor that was objectively better than Pepsi, and all that remained was for Coke to roll out this new flavor and skewer the competition. On the 23rd of April 1985, Coke's CEO unveiled the new formula, which they branded New Coke, announcing that not only would this new formula be available immediately, but that the production of the old formula would cease that same week. You would no longer be able to buy the original flavor of Coke anywhere. It was gone. Everything that people had loved for 100 years vanished in that instant, and in its place was this new, untested product that nobody was asking for. The backlash was beyond catastrophic. Sales immediately began to decline after the initial honeymoon period wore off and people had a chance to try the new flavor. Coke scrambled to understand what was going wrong, and almost immediately, a crucial part of the puzzle became clear. The new flavor was sweeter and more intense, which was perfect for small sip tests like you'd have in a focus group testing environment, but terrible if you had to guzzle a whole can of it or a bottle of it. New Coke was great the first time you tried it, but spend any prolonged period of time with it and you soon realize how much better the old Coke flavor was. So, why the hell am I starting my Destiny 2 review with a discussion about New Coke?
One of the things they say is they were only looking at getting people who didn't currently drink Coca-Cola to come to Coca-Cola with a change of taste. That perhaps they maybe didn't focus on the loyal drinkers and what it was going to mean to them.
This year I attended Gamescom in Germany, and Deej approached me while I was there to say hello, and I told him I was really excited and hopeful for what Forsaken could be. And I wanted it to be great because I miss Destiny in my life as my hobby, one of my hobbies. As I spoke to Deej, he said something to me that really struck me. He said something along the lines of, we leaned in a little bit too much to a lot of the feedback we were getting about valuing my time, reducing the grind, making things simpler. And now with Forsaken, we're going in a different direction. As I look back on the bare-boned remains of Destiny 2's original release, I really firmly believe that this was a game designed by focus group. I think Activision and Bungie invited in a whole bunch of people who didn't love this thing and asked them, what will it take for you to buy this product? And what came back were all of the things that true fans of this game would not want. Less complexity, less grind, more loot for less effort, a story with a big dumb baddie where all of it makes sense no matter how little I pay attention. Destiny went from being a hobby to being just another video game like all the rest, because just like New Coke, Bungie put its faith into market research, and just like New Coke, Destiny 2 was fine in small doses. It was fine if you sipped it, but if you're going to make it your go-to pastime, if you're going to really drink from the fire hydrant, then you're going to find the flavor lacking, and you're going to yearn for what you had before. The New Coke saga ended just 78 days after the reveal of New Coke, when the CEO announced that Coke was going back to the old formula. No changes, no improvements, just back to what they had before. A retreat to familiar territory and higher ground. And if you've played any Destiny 2 Forsaken yet, or you've seen any coverage, you'll know that this latest DLC is the same retreat to familiar territory and higher ground. Destiny was the world's first truly successful MMO light on a console, and the biggest shift you'll see as you play Forsaken is that it returns the franchise to these MMO foundations. Forsaken harkens back to the glory days of The Taken King, where the game proudly moved beyond its confused beginnings as a shared world shooter, and embraced a vision of itself that was deeper, more demanding, more complex, and more rewarding. The results are brilliant with Forsaken, and the game is once again wonderful. But where The Taken King was a seminal breakthrough for both the game and the genre, Forsaken is a far more nuanced puzzle to unpack, owing to both the disappointing journey that served as its prelude and the degree to which the game is still held back by the design decisions made during the development of Destiny 2. This is clearly a DLC foisted onto the awkward scaffolding of Destiny 2, and while many parts of this experience are the best Destiny has ever been, others are a reminder of just how far Destiny fell from grace with the fateful release of its sequel. The high ground has been regained with Forsaken, but at huge cost to both the consumer and Bungie's reputation. Today, I want to show you what Destiny is now so that you can decide for yourself if that cost is worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review of Destiny 2 Forsaken.
How's my hair? Speechless. Typical. Oh no. There's nothing I can... I'm sorry. Listen, kid. This ain't on you. This is what I get for
playing nice. You tell Zavala and Ikora, the Vanguard, is the best bet I ever lost.
This is how the 6th Cade died, and it marked a true turning point for the way that Bungie approached its universe. I think the best way to talk about it is through the lens of something we're all pretty sick of at this point: superhero movies. See, vanilla Destiny was bleak and humorless. It took itself way too seriously. It didn't know how to crack a joke. It just went for darkness, 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 darkness everywhere. It was basically the Batman vs Superman grimdark hellhole that everyone hates the DC universe for. But then along comes the Taken King, and things start to change. Cade 6 gets shoved out front and center as the comic relief, and there's this general sense of levity that starts to affect every character's line of dialogue. They're all serious people doing a serious thing, but they knew when to crack a smile and how to keep things light. This was basically the video game equivalent of the early years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where movies like Iron Man and Thor really knew how to strike the right balance between gravitas and gags.
Yeah, I can fly.
And then along comes Destiny 2, and boy oh boy did things fall apart. I feel like the focus groups were all like, hey, we love Cade's jokes, do more of those. And Bungie were like, jokes, hey? Yeah, we can do more of those. And the result was a complete abandonment of the dark and mysterious tone that really defined Destiny's universe. Replacing it was a cast of characters who were just terrible. We had like Sajora of House EDZ, we had cranky Rick Sanchez, we had mentally ill Claptrap. All of these characters existed to deliver hammed up one-liners that also might provide some exposition, but that was really a secondary concern. And the Vanguard as well, including Cade, they just lost their touch. It just felt like Cade was trying too hard most of the time, and the subtle, sparingly deployed wit of his was replaced by drivel. This was basically the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 era for Destiny.
Unlike someone I know, they can handle hostile technology.
Hey, that teleporter was all vexy and stuff.
Now, it might seem strange to fixate so much on the comedic tone of Destiny 2, but so overbearing was this approach that it was really all you could focus on during the campaign. Destiny was always more about the mystery and the stakes than it was Cade's jokes, and as a result, what little story there was in Destiny 2 really had no chance to breathe. That's why the death of Cade is such a turning point for the franchise. It marks the end of an era of silliness, and in the strongest possible terms, the absolute strongest. It resets the tone in one fell swoop and reminds us that the stakes are real in the Destiny universe, and it can be dark, and it can take itself seriously, just the way we want it to. Cade's death sets in motion a classic Western gunslinger tale of revenge. There's Aldrin at the top of the pile, but to get to him, Cade has to work his way through the barons of the Tangled Shore, leaders of a new enemy faction known as the Scorn, who are fallen. It's a new big bad boss to chase, new mini-bosses along the way, a new enemy type to grind, and a new area to play in. I have to say that the campaign for Forsaken is really excellent. It's really simple. You just do missions where you chase the Baron bosses through the new open world areas, but there's just enough lore and just enough narrative and so much imagination in the character and encounter design that things just land beautifully. I love anything, movie, game, book, whatever, that puts down a gauntlet of mini-bosses before you get to the big bad guy. It's one of the reasons that Kill Bill is one of my favorite movies. Beatrix is just working her way through that list of characters who each have so much personality and backstory that each victory is satisfying in and of itself, separate from the broader goal of getting to Bill. It's the same here in Forsaken. The character design for each of the Barons is superb. They look awesome, they sound so great, and even though you only learn a little bit about them, you learn enough to know what their shtick is, and then the encounters actually deliver on that shtick. If you're going up against the Rider, you're going to be chasing them on a pike in a mission that feels very Mad Max-esque. If it's the Trickster, you're going to be getting tricked by heavy ammo pickups that are actually traps. If it's the Rifleman, you're going to be firing madly at distant targets to bring them down, testing your reflexes and pinpoint precision. Fascinatingly, each mission asks you to become the enemy you are fighting against, to use their own strengths against them, and it's, in my view, the best mission design that Destiny has delivered to date. There is a discussion to be had about the campaign's ending, which is controversial to say the least. The Cacodemon Spaghetti Monster was just really shit. I don't care what the lore is. I don't care in the slightest, in fact. We was robbed of a gripping showdown with Aldrin in that moment. Imagine if at the end of Kill Bill, Beatrix reaches Bill only to find out that her true enemy all along was this guy. We'd feel pretty robbed, and the climax of that bloody tale of vengeance wouldn't be anywhere near as satisfying as seeing that 5-point palm exploding heart technique and Bill shuffling off to his doom. We needed that closure, and a cutscene doesn't provide it in the way we deserve. Still, Aldrin dies, and I have to say that this is the boldest moment in the whole narrative. It would have been easy to go the hero's route and spare him, but we, or Petra, executed him in cold blood. It doesn't matter who, by the way, because we didn't stop it. There's a moral conundrum in that decision, and it's one that I've seen people arguing about in a way that shows that that moment meant something to people and challenged the way they saw their guardians. So that's the narrative, but what about some of the campaign details? If you're wondering how long it will take you to move through this campaign, you're really talking about 15 hours of play. There's about 12 or so missions to work through, and interspersed in that, you'll probably have to spend a lot of time just doing public events, completing patrols, and exploring the Tangled Shore. You'll get to know the Scorn really well during this time, and it feels great to finally have a new enemy type in Destiny after all this time. They look like Fallen, but they're not just reskins. Each of them borrows and combines much of what we've seen before from previous enemy types, like the Screebs who just run up to us and explode, or the Captain-style enemies whose job it is just to absorb lots of bullets, but they honestly do feel fresh enough, and I've really enjoyed fighting against them. They look as Destiny enemies should, they fight like they should, and they've earned their place in the pantheon of enemies that comprise Destiny's universe. The real standout design work, though, is the new real estate added in this expansion, and while I'll talk about the Dreaming City later, I want to quickly say that the Tangled Shore feels superb. It's like the Prison of Elders if it was an entire zone, borrowing from the Fallen architecture while adding a rusted Mad Max-esque quality. It just fits perfectly. It's got this consistent purple color palette that grounds the experience, and it, along with the Dreaming City, are just the best zones in all of Destiny 2. Io and Nessus just basically look the same to me most of the time. Titan is just this tiny oil rig, and you basically never go to the other side of the map. The EDZ is just the Cosmodrome 2.0, Mercury is about the size of a Q-tip, and Mars, it's just the same stuff that we've seen before, but the Tangled Shore, it feels fresh, and I think Bungie's design team have done such great work here. So, that's the campaign, but in many respects, that really doesn't matter all that much. I don't think most people buy Destiny to play through the campaign. They're buying it for the promise of an endgame that's worth playing. Destiny 2 completely gutted this endgame, hollowed out the game completely. So, let's now take a look and explore how Forsaken evolves Destiny's endgame experience. If I may, I'd like to offer a thesis on why it is we play Destiny. For me, it's 3 things. Firstly, it feels really good to play Destiny. The kinesthetic link between player, weapon, and movement is the gold standard across the entire spectrum of video games. The way it feels good to jump with Mario, or grind with Tony Hawk, it feels good to pull the trigger in Destiny. Second, we have the chance to acquire items that make it feel even better to play Destiny. Exotics, legendary weapons and armor with the right combination of perks. All of these things enhance the already satisfying feeling of playing Destiny. Thirdly and finally, we're offered a variety of means of acquiring these items, and these means are engaging, rewarding, and ultimately enjoyable. Bounties, PvP, raids, open world exploration, all of these things represent a path towards the rewards that we want, and as long as the investment of time isn't too onerous, we enjoy working towards these things because of point 1, which is that it feels good to play Destiny. Destiny 2 broke this model completely. While the quality of Destiny's gunplay remained intact, Destiny felt way less fun to play because our abilities were on absurdly long cooldowns, our movement was slowed, and we could no longer use sniper rifles and shotguns in our secondary weapon slot. We were constricted to using primary weapons pretty much all the time. The items that we were working towards collecting were bland and insipid, their power gutted in the name of keeping PvP more balanced. And thirdly, there was a complete breakdown in the path towards those rewards, with a dearth of endgame activities and a reliance on token drops and a limited number of weekly resets. In short, Destiny 2 went from being a 20-hour-a-week commitment to a 4-hour-a-week commitment, and those 4 hours ultimately felt boring because there wasn't much to do, and unrewarding because the items you were getting didn't feel like they were worth your time. Forsaken is built as a direct response to the breakdown of this model, and in all areas, it now delivers an experience that is the best Destiny has ever been. Destiny once again feels fantastic to play because Bungie have remembered that feeling powerful is more important than the game feeling balanced. Your Guardian's abilities are on quicker cooldowns, and these cooldowns can be reduced further by the new modding system should you choose to build that way. The new supers that have been added are absolutely fantastic, but more than that, the skill trees associated with them provide a broadened sense of build diversity that has been sorely missing in Destiny 2. There are 9 different, very viable specs for each class now, and that's before you start adding in weapon and armor choices. It's not the sort of flexibility that exists in games like Warframe, not even close, but there does exist meaningful differentiation within these builds, and they're each fun and effective to play in their own way. The single most important change to the feel of Destiny, however, is the reversal of the changes to primary, secondary, and heavy weapons. In the original Destiny, you could equip a shotgun or a sniper rifle in your secondary slot, giving you a lot more flex in a fight where you typically rely on your primary weapon most of the time, and then pull out your secondary when circumstances called for it. In Destiny 2, snipers and shotguns were moved to the heavy slot, meaning that the ammo for them was far more scarce, and you were typically reliant on firing 2 primary weapons 98% of the time. This was a decision designed to solve the previously unsolvable problem of secondary weapons in the Crucible being the go-to weapon whenever you had secondary ammo to use. The thing is, 2 primaries all the damn time is boring as hell, and no change did more damage to the overall combat rhythm than this one. It has been reversed now with Forsaken, and you can now equip shotguns and sniper rifles in your primary slot should you choose to do so, though this is more of a gimmick than anything else. Regardless, this change is fundamental and restores the core combat rhythm of Destiny to what it should have been all along. On the gear side, there's now a real gear game in Destiny 2. First and foremost, random rolls have been returned. Destiny 2 removed these, meaning that when you got the Better Devils hand cannon, every Better Devils you got after that was exactly the same. In Destiny 1, almost every item had a set of random perks that could roll on it, and every drop was a moment of excitement as you open the menu, explore the perks, and decide whether or not your newly acquired toy was worth keeping. I really cannot overstate how transformative this change is on the gear game. With Destiny 2, you stopped caring about drops within the first 1 or 2 weeks since you got pretty much every drop in that time. A looter like Destiny is entirely about creating that sensation of excitement when an item drops, hardwiring your brain to the dopamine release of what possibilities that item might hold. On a deep, psychological, chemical level, Destiny 2's defined perk roll system broke a huge part of the Destiny experience, but it's fixed now, and there's little more to say other than that. Secondly, there's been a huge revision to the power model governing exotic weapons and items. If you played Destiny 2 at release, you'll remember that not a single one of the new exotics could hold a candle to even middling exotics from Destiny 1. They were just way less interesting, way less powerful. Chastened by the lessons of the Galahorn, it seemed like Bungie were reluctant to create any weapon so powerful that it became a must-have, but in pursuing that objective they forgot how important it was to make items that we would want to grind for. Bungie took steps to address this some months after the release of Destiny 2, buffing numerous exotics to make them far more powerful, but Forsaken sees the release of a slew of new exotics that sort of fit this new power model really well. I mean, take this bow that my friend M-Tash got. It fires 3 arrows, but if you fully draw the bow back, they become a single shot. If you land a precision kill, your next 3 arrows are charged with chain lightning, and if you splay them out widely, they create a huge arc of chain lightning that can just immediately wipe out a string of enemies that no other weapon could wipe out in the same way. This is a weapon with a unique mechanic, with 2 different firing modes, and with a huge skill cap associated with it if you spend the time to master it. That's cool, and that is what this game should be doing, and that's what the game is doing now with Forsaken. Now, the reason I'm showing you MTash footage here instead of my own footage is because I don't have this weapon yet. In fact, I don't have the vast majority of new exotics available in Forsaken, which is also a massive departure from Destiny's 2 initial release. In their effort to make the game more casual and accessible, Bungie opened the floodgates on the exotic economy when the sequel landed, and it's little exaggeration to say that you could have got almost every exotic in a few short weeks if you knew how to work the system. That's changed now. Exotic drop rates are far more rare, Xur no longer sells the 3 of coins, and he no longer sells newly added exotics. He'll only sell you the old ones, so you'll need to earn the new ones as drops. If you're the kind of player that wants welfare exotics delivered to you at regular intervals for doing practically nothing, you will hate Destiny 2 Forsaken, and you should go and play something else. You need to work for your items again in this expansion, and that is fantastic. So on top of a game that feels better to play and items worth earning, we now have a path towards these items that is varied and enjoyable because it builds strong connective tissue between all of Destiny's new and existing experiences. It's a little hard to explain, so let me show you an example. This here is the Lord of Wolves. It's an exotic shotgun that's making a return from Destiny 1, and I want it. How do I know I want it? Well, I know because I now have a collections tab in my menu that lists every single item in the game. Weapons, armor, ships, sparrows, shaders, emblems, whatever. This menu becomes my gotta catch 'em all shopping list that allows me to track how complete my Destiny experience is. So I set my sights on the Lord of Wolves and I do some research to find out that it drops from bounties provided by this guy, the Spider. The thing is, to get those bounties, I need to earn ghost fragments by completing activities in the Tangled Shore. Stuff like patrols, public events, looting chests, that sort of thing. So that's what I do. I'm pushed out into the open world to do all of this stuff, to play Destiny and enjoy the casual grind so that I can then come back and buy these bounties from him. When I have them, I now need to track down the target, who's located in a lost sector on another planet. Lost sectors are these sort of curated caves located throughout the open world that have a high-level enemy at the end of them, and they've existed in Destiny 2, but there was just no reason to do them, so everyone kind of ignored them. Now, we've got a reason to visit them. So as I'm thinking about the fact that I need to do a lost sector, I remember that there's actually a bounty from my clan vendor to complete some lost sectors. And if I do that, I can get a powerful engram which will give me a guaranteed upgrade. So I head back to tower to pick that bounty up. And while I'm there, I remember that Zavala has a few bounties that involve me killing enemies in the open world, and I need tokens from him so I can unlock all of the Season 4 Vanguard gear. And come to think of it, Tess actually now has a bounty to do lost sectors, which awards me with silver dust that I can use to buy the cosmetics that I want. So I pick up all of these bounties, I head to the lost sector, I clear it out, I kill the boss, only when he dies, he drops a special Prime Engram, which is a guaranteed upgrade for me, because I had a daily buff active called Prime Attuned, which gives me a chance to get one of these special engrams whenever I kill a challenging enemy. So in this moment, I've made progress towards my Season 4 Vanguard gear, gained silver dust for cosmetics, got a powerful engram from my clan vendor, got a Prime Engram from this boss that I just killed, and I just had a shot at an exotic that I wanted. And you know what's great about all this? I don't even care that the Lord of Wolves didn't drop then, because I was getting so much done in that moment that I basically forgot I was chasing the Lord of Wolves in the first place. The circumstances I've just described here are the perfect example of the overlapping economy of rewards that Bungie has now built, and the way that they've woven together their existing game systems to leverage experiences that were to this point irrelevant or ignored. Open world patrols, public events, planetary materials, bounties, factional reps, cosmetics, lost sectors, clans, powerful engrams. All of these combined together into one seamless experience that was so enjoyable just to roll through because I was being rewarded for it. It's almost impossible to do anything in Destiny at this point without making progress towards 3 or 4 things at once, which is a polar opposite versus Destiny 2, where there was basically nothing to do at all after you'd knocked over your weekly resets in the first few hours of each week. So here's the high-level takeaway on this important point, right? I had no interest whatsoever in playing Destiny 2 within the first 3 weeks of owning it. Now, I've set goals for myself to earn items, reputation, unlock triumphs, which are basically achievements by the way, and I know for a fact that these goals will take me 200 to 300 hours to complete at least. At least that, probably well more. There is so much to do and collect in this game now, and the reward curve is so on point in almost every aspect. There is one glaring issue with this rewards curve, however, and that's the issue of Masterworks. Masterworks were added to the game with the Warmind DLC, and they are basically just better versions of your existing legendary weapons because they drop orbs on kills. They have a very minor stat change, but it's really the orbs that you're chasing. Masterworks could drop randomly, or you could masterwork an item by combining it with the Masterwork cores, which could be obtained in a variety of ways. In Forsaken, Bungie took the very puzzling step of adding Masterwork cores as a requirement to infuse your gear up to higher levels. So if you get a lower level hand cannon with a great roll on it, but it's a really low light level, you can use a higher level weapon to raise its level, sure, but you also now need to use Masterwork cores. This is really, really fucking shitty. The Infusion system has a really clear and really important objective, which is to enable players to use whichever weapons they like by bringing them up to usable status. If you have a great hand cannon that you love, but it's really low light level, you can't take that into a raid or a nightfall because that would drop your light level. The Infusion system enabled you to bring the weapons and armor that you wanted. It was about usability. The Masterwork system isn't about bringing your items up to usable status. It was about making your weapons the absolute best they could be. When you masterworked a weapon, it was a commitment to say, of all of the weapons I have, this one is special. I want to make it more effective in combat. You could still use lots of other weapons because they were all high enough light level to do so. They were usable. But this one, this Masterwork weapon, was now better than the rest because you blessed it with that Masterwork kiss. It was special. What this new system does is it combines and confuses the concepts of usability and special. Now if I get a new hand cannon with a great roll, I simply cannot use it because I do not have enough Masterwork cores to bring it to the required light level. And even if I did, I could no longer make it special because I don't have the cores required to do that. With the return of random rolls, item variety in Destiny 2 has never been higher, and this system is doing tremendous damage to the item economy. Destiny is way less fun when I cannot infuse drops to their required level, and frankly this was not a change that anyone wanted. No one was calling out for Infusion to be throttled because it was fine, and I'm unsure what the goals of this change would have been. Many argue that the solution to this is to simply provide new, more generous sources of Masterwork cores, but again, I would stress that by using this currency to infuse weapons, we are confusing two very separate systems with very separate goals. I should not have to choose between making an item usable versus making it special. I should be able to accomplish both of these objectives along reasonable timelines. So I really hope that Masterwork cores are completely removed from the Infusion process and we are restored the freedom to experiment with all this awesome new loot we are now getting, choosing judiciously which of these items will get the rare privilege of joining our Masterworked arsenal. But apart from this, I'll stress that Destiny's 2 power and progression curves are once again on point. In my previous review of Warmind, I showed this, which is a visual demonstration of the way that player power scaled throughout your Destiny experience. Up to and including Warmind, the removal of random rolls on gear and a reliance on a handful of weekly resets and tokens meant that while you could still grind in Destiny, you couldn't grind to become more powerful. That's changed now. Random rolls are back, there are dozens of weekly reset activities that you can pick and choose from, and there are a variety of mechanics that allow you to grind towards power increases. In short, the Destiny experience is complete again, at least insofar as PvE is concerned. So let's turn our attention now to the PvP side of the game, which has also undergone a complete transformation and now offers up one of the most unique and compelling competitive experiences you can find in any game on the market today. As much as Destiny 2's PvE game was disappointing at launch, its PvP game was just a complete fucking catastrophe. PvP in Destiny 1 had been fast, it had been low stakes, it had been unbalanced, but it had ultimately been fun. It was just a really chill PvP experience that you didn't take too seriously because it was clearly a bit of a mess. Going into Destiny 2, there'd very much been a desire on the part of all people to make PvP more balanced and more competitive. But Bungie totally overbaked the cake on both of these objectives and PvP was left completely unplayable. The core issues back then were this. Firstly, we went from 6 Guardians down to 4. The intent was to make the experience less hectic. If you put 100 people in a room, it's a brawl. If you put 2 people in a room, it's a boxing match. Bungie wanted to make the action easier to digest by having fewer people shooting at you from every which direction, with supers going off every 2 minutes and all the rest. And speaking of supers, all your ability cooldowns were on much longer cooldowns in Destiny 2, because again, they wanted to reduce some of the craziness and put the focus on gunplay. On top of all of this, time to kill was increased massively. It took way longer to bring an opponent down, and this was designed to give people more time to respond to an attack, so it wasn't always a case of who shot first like it was in, say, Call of Duty. Individually, each of these changes makes a fair amount of sense, and you could sort of see the logic behind them, but in aggregate, the result is the most boring Crucible experience imaginable. Maps weren't made any smaller despite the reduced number of players, so it sort of just felt like there was no one on the map most of the time. The removal of special weapons like snipers and shotguns, coupled with the longer time to kill, meant that it was almost impossible to bring down an opponent before their friend turned up and made it an unfair 2v1. The old 1v2 outplays were gone because it simply took too long to kill 2 people. So what this meant is that everyone would run around as a team of 4 because it was safest to do that, and everyone would just corridor peek because trying to bum rush your enemy was guaranteed suicide. I've given a really technical breakdown of the PvP systems here, but I think it's best to look at them at a much higher level. In Destiny's PvE, I feel like a guardian. I jump, I fly, I cast spells, I charge headlong into swarms of enemies without fear. I'm a force of nature in the PvE context. In Destiny 2's PvP at the time of release, I wasn't a guardian when I stepped into the Crucible. I was weak, I was vulnerable, I was a coward. In addition to this, Bungie made vast changes to the PvP queues. We could no longer queue up for the game modes we wanted to, forced instead to play boring game modes that we didn't want to play, and the competitive queue offered no rewards for winning there at all. It was just a different queue with even more boring game modes than the one in quick play. So, it's a bleak picture, but thankfully, all of this is now fixed in Destiny 2 Forsaken, and PvP is good again. First of all, 4 players per team. Gone. That idea sucked, it was boring. It's now 6v6 in quick play, way more fun. Next. Time to kill is way shorter. You're looking at basically a return to Destiny 1 time to kill. You can and will outplay people in 1v2s very often if you're skilled enough, and that's awesome. The secondary ammo economy is fixed actually, for like the first time ever. You spawn with 2 rounds in your secondary weapon and you get the rest as drops from kills. It means I can always use my secondary weapon a reasonable amount, but I can't run with it forever unless I'm getting kills. Many argue that shotguns are too pervasive in the Crucible at the moment, but I really disagree with this. If I can get close enough to use a shotgun, then it should kill someone. It should do its job. If you round corners without a shotgun in your hand and you get shotgunned and you die, then that's on you. If you just play smarter and understand what your loadout is and know maps, you will be fine. Queues are also fixed. You can now queue for quick play, which is a mix of control and team deathmatch, but there's also a rumble queue, a supremacy queue, private matches have returned, and there's also a competitive queue if you're down for the sweaty 4v4 style of play. In essence, Destiny 2 offered you no choice on how you wanted to PvP, be it in the number of players or in game modes, and that choice has been restored here in Forsaken. For me, the Crucible is fun again, and I really revel in just how low the stakes are, because the lack of dedicated servers continues to undermine how seriously I can take this game. Every second or third game, I encounter the ugly side of Bungie's out-of-date peer-to-peer hybrid architecture. As red bar warriors teleport around the Crucible, bullets don't register, or I simply get disconnected because reasons. The Crucible is fun, but you still cannot take it seriously because Bungie does not take its own technology seriously. So if you're okay with that, then enjoy yourself. But if you're looking for something more serious, then Destiny is still not the game for you. But to be honest, all of these changes only lay the groundwork for the most important contribution to Destiny's competitive landscape since launch. I'm talking, of course, about Gambit. Got him. Oh, he was just about to drop him. Can we, Oh, he just dropped down. Okay, we got... Come on, we got... Oh, this could actually save it. Come on. Come on, team. Go, 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 go. Come on, you can actually do this. You can actually do it. Oh my god, we did this. Yes. We did this on the back of that one pistol shot. That did that. That was amazing. That one like hand cannon kill that we got just at the end was enough to heal the boss, and then we took the win at that. Oh, that's fantastic. That team would be pissed. Here's the deal with Gambit. 2 teams of 4 players both drop onto separate but identical arenas. Their task is to kill enemies to collect motes, bank motes to summon a boss, and then kill the boss before the enemy team kills theirs. It's a race. Very simple, right? Wrong. Players from each team can also intermittently invade the other team. Killing them denies them motes that they need, and it will also heal their boss enemy if you're on that final stretch of the boss kill. Now, I could literally do a 30-minute video detailing for you all of the strategic complexities and considerations inherent in this game mode. I could talk about how to assign roles in your team, like who should be dealing damage versus who should be picking up motes. I could talk about optimal build setups for both yourself and a fully optimized squad. I could talk about sightlines to lock down when an invasion happens, or how to successfully counter-invade, or when to bank versus not to bank. There's so much depth to this game mode that I could go on forever, but I won't. I'll just say that this is the smartest game mode yet added to Destiny's PvP landscape, and the very best PvP moments I've had in Destiny to date. All of them have been in Gambit. And in fact, some of my best PvE memories in Destiny to date have also happened in Gambit, as the boss burning phase has a whole new layer of intensity to it when another team is racing to burn down their boss at exactly the same time. Oh my god, they're so close. If they get a kill on us here...
Super, oh, come on, I fucking died! Go, go, go!
Oh,
oh my god, just go, go, go.
Oh my god, yes! That snipe at the end. It would be easy to say that Gambit is a great, fun new game mode that brings something interesting to Destiny's competitive scene, but I think its potential impact is far more profound than that. Let me explain. To date, the preeminent PvP experience in Destiny has been Trials of Osiris in Destiny 1 and Trials of the Nine in Destiny 2, which is essentially 4v4 round-based team deathmatch where you're rewarded with the top gear for PvP, the best of the best loot. It is the flagship PvP game mode that is touted as the truest, most competitive Destiny PvP experience. But in my very personal view, I think this game mode is garbage. It's always been garbage. It's so boring. It's the same ultra-safe, corridor-peeking, team-shooting style of play that made Destiny's 2 PvP so awful on its release. Like I said, you don't feel like a Guardian in Trials, you just feel like a dude with a gun, like in pretty much every game ever. It's generic and it does nothing to move beyond a classic 4v4 team deathmatch mode, the likes of which we were playing back with Doom and Quake and Unreal back in like the early 90s. Now, I've always thought of Trials as what you'd get if you tried to make a really good PvP game really boring. Like, take Rainbow Six Siege, for example. Siege is this brilliant tactical shooter. Now, I could strip out all of the things that make this game genius and just deliver a stupid shooty game where we all run around the map in team deathmatch and shoot each other with guns until everyone is dead. But that would be shit, because it wouldn't engage the operator abilities, the traversal, the fortification, the destructible environments, the camera drones, all of this great stuff that makes Siege, Siege. Gambit is so much more than what Trials could ever hope to be, because not only does it bring a robust PvE experience, not only does it have tense PvP moments, but it's also underpinned by an intelligent, strategic, decision-making framework that leverages every single part of the Destiny experience. Your gear, your team roles, your abilities, and how they are used in PvE and PvP context, all of this is happening at once in every moment of Gambit. My hope is that as the competitive landscape of Destiny continues to evolve, that Bungie will put more and more effort and focus on Gambit to make it the preeminent PvP game mode within Destiny. Let it reward the best gear and titles. Pull more players towards this experience with the right incentives, because I honestly believe that this new game mode is the jewel in Destiny's competitive crown, and it is undoubtedly my favorite part of the entire Forsaken expansion.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together and stood united against the might of the Burning Legion. Though Azeroth was saved, the tenuous pact between the Horde and the Alliance has all but evaporated. the drums of war thunder once again.
Let me tell you a story that I recently heard courtesy of PC Gamer. I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft, 10 years of it in fact. I was a beta player and I basically sacrificed the better part of my 20s to that game. It was as important in shaping who I am today as my university education was, or the various part-time jobs I had, or whatever. As anyone who was playing vanilla WoW back then will remember, it was a special, epochal moment in the history of gaming, and I'm always really thankful that I got to take part in it in the way that I did. On January 3rd, 2006, Blizzard released the Gates of Anchorage update. It was a big stretch of open world territory at the southern part of the map that housed not one, but 2 raids that would be released at the same time. The only catch was that getting the gates to these raids to open would require a war effort. It's so hard to explain what this is now because it's never been done since, and even now the idea just seems so unfathomably ambitious that it would seem impossible, but here's how it worked, okay? On each server, the Horde and the Alliance would race each other to be the first to ring the gong that opens the Gates of Anchorage. To do this, each faction had to contribute hundreds and thousands of materials, things like bandages or herbs or blacksmithing ore or whatever, you know? And you as a player would be the one doing that. It would be like Bungie saying to you, hey, you know those masterwork cores that you have? How about you throw them on a big invisible pile so that they can contribute to the process of getting the next raid unlocked as soon as possible? Now, our 2018 brains probably see this as some shitty move to throttle progression or stretch out content or whatever, but our 2006 brains didn't think that way. They were too busy being blown by the ambition of this thing, and everyone was contributing basically everything they could to get this done. You'd never seen anything like it, and no one has seen anything like it since. The other part of getting the gates open is that the top raiding guilds on each server were racing to complete a hugely complex and expensive quest chain that would ultimately give them the scepter they needed to ring the gong and open the door. This was a race between the top guilds on the server because only one person was able to assemble the scepter and ring that gong on the whole server. Imagine that, the effort of an entire server being fed into the deeds of one player in one moment when they ring that gong and open up an entirely new experience for every player on the server. The player who won this race and rang that gong was given the title of Scarab Lord, an honorific that appeared above their heads so all who met them could know who this person was and what they'd contributed to that server. On the Eredar server, the title of Scarab Lord was claimed by a Tauran shaman by the name of Aganthir, guildmaster of a guild called Paradox. And in real life, Aganthir has a different name, and that name is Luke Smith, the man who would many years later go on to become the creative director of the Destiny franchise. To this day, Luke Smith's email signature reads Scarab Lord, a reminder of a moment that he says shaped the person that he is today. If you've been following Destiny this past 2 weeks as the world's top players race to be the first to complete the new raid, The Last Wish, you'll likely already be seeing some parallels between this 12-year-old story about World of Warcraft and what took place when the Redeemed clan finally beat the encounter after 18 straight hours of raiding. As the first in the world to clear the raid, these players each got an extremely rare exotic weapon and an emblem celebrating their victory. More importantly, their actions were advertised to every single Destiny player because in that moment, new missions, a new Gambit map, and a new strike was made available to everyone. The actions of those 6 people unlocked the final glorious act in this expansion, just as Luke Smith unlocked the Gates of Anchorage when he rang that gong 12 years ago. I have not done the raid because I'm not high enough light level to do so, and I won't be for another 2 to 3 weeks. That's not for lack of trying, mind you. I've played Forsaken almost every waking moment since it was released. I just didn't do all of the power leveling tricks because, to be honest, I was enjoying the expansion so much that I didn't want to rush it. I've watched the raid in its entirety as I track the race to World First, and I will say that it looks to be Bungie's most ambitious and demanding raid yet. I cannot comment further on that, having not done it, but I can say that this raid appears to address all of the problems that players had with the Leviathan raid, which many came to agree was the weakest Destiny raid to date. So I haven't done the raid, but what I have spent a lot of time doing is exploring the second open world area that was added with Forsaken, the Dreaming City, and it's in discussing this that I'd like to begin concluding this review. The title of this video is We Finally Have a Real Sequel. The restoration of the core of the Destiny gameplay loop doesn't make it a sequel. To be frank, and I don't mean this cynically, but all that does is get Destiny back to where the Rise of Iron left off. It gets us back to what Destiny should be, and it does very little to advance beyond that, to be honest. Gambit is an example of one of the things that shove Forsaken into the sequel territory. The game is fundamentally different with its inclusion, and it has the potential to be even more different in the future, given that we're only at the start of what Gambit could potentially bring to Destiny. For me, it's the Dreaming City that serves as the starkest line in the sand between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, because it's an open world area with an entirely different design ethos than anything we've seen before. The secrets of Destiny have long been something enshrined in its raids and peppered throughout the Dreadnought, but the Dreaming City is an entire open world area built on the concept of secrets and player discovery. And it evolves every week as these secrets are moved around and rearranged and new areas unlock and new bosses appear. A complete guide to the Dreaming City is one that would be revisited regularly as we continue to learn more about it, and that's the beauty of all of this, in that it forces the community to work together because we cannot uncover all of this on our own. In this way, the unlocking of the secrets in the Dreaming City is the war effort that we are each contributing to, and this confusing, mysterious, magnificent place reinforces and enlarges our conception of what Destiny is and can be. Video games like these, MMO lights and looters, they're so often about things like drop rates, the economy, the balance decisions, but with the Dreaming City, it's not about any of those things. It's about creating something special and rare, and it's in these ambitions that gaming rightly gets to be called art. But that's really the bittersweet rub in all of this. In 1981, Disney's CEO Michael Eisner wrote an internal memo to staff that said this: "We have no obligation to make history. We have no obligation to make art. We have no obligation to make a statement. To make money is our only objective." This quote stayed with me ever since I heard it because it's Disney, one of the most culturally significant companies of the modern era, clearly stating that the bottom line is king and that art is negotiable within the scope of their mission and identity. For me, this quote has always explained the behavior of any corporate entity that disappoints me, because it is a matter of fact, undeniable truth that the primary consideration of those entities has to be the bottom line or they cease to exist. It is sad, but it is a fact of life. I think this quote explains much of what happened with the release of Destiny 2. This was a product cynically constructed by focus group and pushed out well before it was ready. It should not have shipped when it shipped. But commercial imperatives, earnings calls, contractual obligations, all of these things kick in and kick in hard when it comes to a company and a franchise of this size, so out the sequel went, and we all know what impact it had on the incredible community that had been built over the preceding 3 years. There was one last piece of the new Coke story that I didn't tell you, and that's that when people began calling Coke's headquarters to complain about the removal of old Coke, they had a psychiatrist listen in on the calls. And in their final report to management, the psychiatrist commented that people weren't just whinging or complaining or yelling or whatever, they were grieving. People would speak about the loss of Coke as they would the loss of a relative. This product had come to mean so much to them that these people were affected on a deeply personal level, and they grieved its loss. For a year, the Destiny community lost its game, and they grieved deeply as well. Their hobby was taken from them, and it wasn't clear if it would ever come back, especially given how tone-deaf and lazy the first 2 DLC expansions were. But now with Forsaken, we have our game back, and while it's great again, it still feels like that grieving process will continue for a while yet. The cost of the complete Destiny experience at Forsaken is $160 US. That's the base game, the 2 minor DLC drops which you are forced to purchase, by the way, the Forsaken DLC, and the new annual pass, which provides a number of unknown experiences to be delivered over the next 12 months. You can buy a bundle to get all of this cheaper today, but if you were someone that bought Destiny at launch, this is the total that you would have spent at this point. 1 year in, $160 down, enough to buy almost 3 full-price games, and that's before mention of any TES Eververse microtransaction stuff. Destiny 2 Forsaken is a triumph, but I will never say to anyone, you should buy it. You can decide for yourself what this experience is worth to you. If you want to swear off this product and take a stand against Bungie's business practices, I think that's totally justified. If you want to front up the cash because you enjoy Destiny and you just want to experience this, then I think you are also entirely justified. It's up to you. People ask me, skill up. I know the expansion is good, but is it Taken King good? My response to that is simple. We were all a lot more naive back then, and the transformation that Destiny underwent with the Taken King was an honest-to-goodness victory for Bungie as they found their feet with Destiny, and a victory for the community as we stood by Bungie throughout that. With Forsaken, it's difficult to take in its success without reflecting on how much we lost with the jump from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, and in reviewing that, it's impossible to not be at least somewhat skeptical about the future of this franchise. Yes, Forsaken fixed Destiny. Destiny is now great again, but for how long? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to hit like, maybe subscribe, and if you really liked the video or you'd like to get access to the limited edition script, don't forget to check out Patreon. All the details are there.